interestingly enough, and we knew this was going to happen, but this episode left us with so many questions too. And obviously we talked about the big cliffhanger. What were some of the other questions that you came away with, like obvious things? I mean, I guess the really obvious like stuff that we all think is true is that we don't see any of the villains, not die or die. You know, like they could have died or they could have not died. I don't think they would do an on-screen death for any of those guys, but that's, I guess, a starting point as a question mark, as we don't know who of those people is alive.
Yeah, I believe, I'm almost certainly sure Kylo Ren is still alive.
Yes.
Captain Phasma, I believe we all know, will be coming back.
Yeah.
And General Hux, they made a point of saying he escaped. Snoke, obviously not there. So I think we still have our 4 main villains.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the questions, of course, are around Luke and Kylo Ren, I guess. Like that whole history, we get a little that thing about he's trying to train him, and then he was embracing the dark side. It's an extreme thing to hear that Luke Skywalker chose to just take off, because there's a part of you that's like, dude, Luke, deal with this situation.
Why the Jedi Temple? What is there?
Yeah, and like, wouldn't he want to sort of, if he saw that his nephew was turning to the dark side, wouldn't he want to stick around and kind of help squash that?
Well,
so that's my big question.
About being turned, right? Like, I think he's always worried about being turned. He was on the verge of it. Mm-hmm. I think that was the point of Jedi, is that he could have. I think Kylo Ren is the version of Luke if he had been seduced. He's kind of like, Jim and I did a conversation about this well before the movie about like how he could be kind of the anti-Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Like, he's the person who decided to go in, and actually like chose it, and then followed up a bunch of times, like, hey, let's get more of this dark side in here.
Right. I mean, because we going into this movie, we also talked a lot about how it was very interesting to kind of realize in the marketing that, oh wow, there aren't other Jedi. This is the biggest probably divergence. Well, there's huge ones anyway, but one of the biggest divergences from what the EU was the idea that by this point there would be like all these hundreds of new Jedi.
Yeah.
But I do want to know, I don't know if I agree with the theory that Rey was like someone who trained under Luke at all, but I do want to know about who else might have, and what happened to them if Luke just sort of abruptly stopped training them. They still have the Force.
Well, I got the sense that Kylo Ren came in and killed them all.
You think that?
Was I completely off base?
Well, I didn't get that.
Because we see that scene like in the rain.
I didn't get that detail, like, what were the Knights of Ren people he converted, or did he just kill, or
we don't
did
really
he kill
see
the
them in
ones
action.
And that whole dream, we should, again, this is something we have to, when we rewatch this movie, I think we're all going to be paying so much attention to that. When she picks up that lightsaber, I said, I think I hear Yoda for a second, which I think would make sense because I have the idea that it's like the past and future and present, but so much happens, and like that quick glimpse of Luke with R2, and it's like,
well, that's him giving the plans.
Yeah,
right? Like that's him. So
I think so.
So that's the other thing. It's like, what made Luke change his mind? Like, hey, now I'm going to put this map out here so you guys can find me, but only the right people. And he sent it with R2, and then the other interesting thing is in the trailer, it's not. That you see the lightsaber come from.
Maz
it looks Maz giving it to Leia.
Or to Rey.
I think we never knew for sure because it was just hands, but I think
that
it was
could have been
Leia.
like in the flashback. Maybe,
so,
but why wouldn't Leia have had it? Yeah,
so and remember all the rumors about like, oh, this movie's gonna open with a lightsaber like floating in space, and did you guys hear that one? Like,
no,
that's how,
I did not.
Like Luke's saber was just gonna be floating out in space, and I'm like,
I think the big question that we haven't even touched on is like, who is Rey?
Yeah.
Are her parents important? Why is she so powerful? Was she hidden on this planet? Because I got the sense sort of maybe she was like put on this planet to be kept away from Kylo Ren when he was going on this whole rampage.
And I do agree with you that obviously she's hugely powerful in the Force and she is important for that reason. I don't want her to be a Skywalker. I think Kylo Ren is there to be the lineage, of this series. He is the son of Leia. He is the nephew of Luke and the grandson of Vader. I don't need her to also be a blood relative. In fact, I'd much prefer it if she's not. But you have to kind of find out what is the story there.
Yeah, and you see, in that flashback, you see like the arm of one of her parents, right?
Yeah.
Like leaving her on Jakku. I'm the same. First of all, we'd have to explain Luke having somebody that he impregnated, for one thing.
Yeah.
And he is a Jedi, so like maybe he is actually following the Jedi thing of don't be in love, like which they broke in the prequels.
The horrible results.
Yeah.
To horrible results. And it seems like anytime you take up the Force, you just are kind of screwed.
Yeah.
You just don't do it, people. Just carry a blaster, be cool. Yeah, and then the other thing is, we have to figure out what her parentage is and where she has all this Force power from. I thought there were some weird moments, and maybe this is just first viewing and me looking and pressing. I thought there were some weird moments where everybody kind of seemed to know each other a little bit, like Han and Leia and Rey and Kylo. Like they, I mean, obviously
everyone connected to Rey. You mean not knowing each other as
the Force? It always gives you a weird thing because it's like you never know if it's supposed to be a literal, like, I know you, or if it's like the Force brought us together, there's something important about you. Like with Han, because like everyone else, I'm like, is she going to be Han's daughter, And so I'm like, for a second, you're like, oh, wait. But then I do think it was with him supposed to just be like, oh, this girl's awesome. She's a great pilot, mechanic, and I see a sort of bit of myself in her, but not because she's my daughter. But you did wonder, like, what was going on with some of the interactions.
I just thought, though, maybe it could have been, like, a guilt thing where he's like, I failed my own son. This is another child who, like, is without a family who I would like to be a better
He literally
parent
gives her a
to.
place to, like, join
But I
them.
did think it was so weird that Rey and Leia had never met before.
Yes.
And Leia, like, again, we know that Leia is Force sensitive. It could have been something where she felt in that moment that Rey was there and that she would have experienced this. But I was just like, why, of everyone, not Chewie, like, not these other people, would she embrace Rey as, like, I'm sorry, consoling.
And in a movie that had a lot of, to its credit, I think, humor, that was like a little self-deprecating, like the
We'll use the Force. That's not how it works.
Right. I almost needed that to be like, maybe they could have had a moment of like crying, but even being like, nice to meet you, to like acknowledge that like they've never met these two women.
Yeah.
And it's hard to think at what point in the story they would have even had big conversations. I guess they would have come up to some extent because, like, Han said, I saw our son. He's carrying this girl, that she was helping us. But yeah, since none of that happened, it was weird to not have any acknowledgement beyond the, like, you could say the Force, but you needed a little more.
One of the big rumors about this was that both Han and Chewie were going to die in this movie. And, so even all these people, and I think I bought into this too, that she was crying over Chewie in that moment in the snow.
But I thought they were going to kill Finn. I was like, please don't. I love
Oh, right, yeah. And then Chewie, didn't die. And so he becomes, he's with Rey on the Falcon now. How far is that going to go? Do you think that's just it? That's the combo from now on?
I think, a lot of things do make sense as far as, we'd already heard there was, they were casting for a new major female role in the next movie, and she'd been doing chemistry. The actress has been doing chemistry reads with John Boyega, and everyone was like, what does that mean? And it's like, okay, well, but this movie, they are very separated to the point they say, like, we'll see each other again. But you get the feeling the next movie is going to be like, it's like Rey, Luke, Chewie, and R2 are going to be this group, while back at the Resistance, we've got Finn, Poe, Leia, C-3PO, and BB-8, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, I do think, like, this is going to be the new Falcon crew for a little bit. I mean, obviously everyone's going to come back together again, but I do think it's Rey and Chewie in that cockpit now.
I think that they need a different threat for the Republic. I think that they need to have. They're going to want to have
Snoke, you mean?
Yeah, they're going to need to have like space battles and all the stuff that people are expecting. So, how are they going to execute that? What are those elements going to be? Is it just going to be more stormtroopers? I'm sure we're going to get something a little different. Like, I think stormtroopers will probably evolve.
You want a twist with both Snoke and the First Order, because if it is just like, hey, the Empire was actually kind of awesome, let's do that again. Like, again, that worked for this movie on a nostalgia level, and I understand it, but you kind of do need something else.
Well, I think
motivating
who is Snoke?
You're right.
What are his goals? Why do Leia and Han know him on like a name basis? I think that's a huge question. And I think for me it was really exciting, the concept of Luke going back to the first Jedi temple, going back to the origins of this religion, this way of life. Could Snoke, I mean, there have been those rumors that Snoke is Darth Plagueis, who we've heard about in the prequels, the implication is that he trained Palpatine to be a Sith, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but like...
There was a great EU book that he did, but now it does not canon. So.
But like, could Snoke be someone on that level?
I think he is on that level. I mean, I think he's also trying to recruit sort of people to really do his dirty
And does he
work
have other
in the world.
people?
I'm sure he does, and I think I mean, hopefully we'll see some of the other Knights of Ren, unless
Yeah.
they're all dead. But
I mean, I feel like
have a feeling
getting
they
that
will.
little glimpse of them, yeah, you kind of be like, okay, they're out there.
I think we don't know the like extent of what that means, what that order is. Do you guys think that Kylo Ren was just like a mashup of names, and it's like Sky, Solo?
Probably.
Kylo.
Probably.
Jim had a
But-
moment like that where he was like Skywalker, like Solo, Kylo.
Yeah, and I mean, I think
Yeah.
a lot of people are going to draw that conclusion, but it's an interesting conclusion to draw purely because it points to I think he chose that name, and so it's like kind of calling back to his parentage.
Correct me if I'm wrong. In the movie itself, they never used the term Knights of Ren or explain who those guys are with him, right?
No,
like,
I think-
like if we didn't know that going in, we would just be like, oh, and there's that
I
weird.
thought
I think
Snoke
Hux
said-
maybe said something.
Yeah,
Okay.
someone does say it once.
I guess the only reason I'm asking that, even if I guess they mentioned it once, it still applies. Is when I was a kid, I remember I had a trading card of Darth Vader and it said Dark Lord of the Sith.
Right.
But that was my only context for what even Sith was. It wasn't,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't be until the prequels that word was even said on screen, So there's kind of this tradition of like, there's this stuff there and we'll get to it, It's like, we'll flesh that out.
If you think back to the very, very, very first piece of marketing that we heard on Force Awakens, it was just the names.
Yeah.
And I think that
Done on
is-
trading card style.
that is that theory come to life. It's like this is just, it's not just the movie, it's not just the comic or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, we're gonna reveal things that are important. They might not pay off for 10 years, like
Right.
you might. This actually reminds me of the other thing. Rey is not her only name, right? Wasn't there an early version of her name that was different? Or we saw it at
There was a
Star Wars
rumor.
Celebration?
I don't
I thought
know.
there was a rumor of a different name, but it ended up being Rey. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Was that what it was?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
There was
I have
like
to
a leak
actually go
something that
back
was
and look
different.
at some
But it is
stuff.
funny because going into the movie, we did go, oh, they're not telling us Ray or Finn's last name. With Finn, there was a big story point that he had no last name,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I love.
but-
I like that they
Really
resolved
yeah,
that.
but
Really
Ray,
well.
you do again still like, okay, she was taken,
She was young.
yeah,
She
she was
was
young.
waiting.
So what exactly is the deal there?
And also, going on names, this is a very small detail, but I thought it was interesting that Kylo Ren's real name is Ben. Is it because of old Ben Kenobi, which
Yeah.
Han and Leia both would not have been very close with, or is there another reason? That he was named
I mean,
Ben?
I think absolutely it is. I mean, on one hand, you can say it's because of fan service, but I think there's enough there as far as like, Han did know Ben, Obi-Wan, Leia didn't really, but
he was just important. To
right, but there would be a
Yeah.
connection with Luke, especially if Luke was like, I'm never going to have a child, I do think there's enough there to say, like, why would they pick the name Ben that sort of works besides the fact that, hey, it's kind of cool that he's named Ben.
It's also that, like, he's the one that essentially brought them together. Like, it's a relationship thing, too. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, old Ben is the one who brought us together. Beyond that, it's interesting that his name isn't Obi-Wan, it's Ben. It's his, like, adopted name from when he was in hiding.
Yeah.
And that's how Han knows him.
Yeah.
So if it is that callback, it's not just like, we're going to honor him by naming him this thing with our friend. It's like one step removed from that. It's like, this is how Han knows him.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting thing.